Welcome, everybody, to All-Star Insights. I'm your host, Chris McKnight. And today we have part two of a great conversation we were having with Brandon Puffer. And we're looking forward to getting some more details about the major league career and then also what you did after that, starting with your organization and things that you guys are doing now in the organization. I think it's really interesting. You guys have a really popular and like you said, positive in the back there, organization down in Texas. So we want to talk about that a little bit too. And All Star Insights is brought to you by Kids on First Foundation and Tuckahoe Sports. So Brandon, thanks for joining us again for part two.
Absolutely, Chris. Man, we had so much fun. We decided to run it back. I love it.
That's right.
That's
So
right.
I know we left off. We talked a little bit about your debut in Major League Baseball and stuff. So we're gonna kind of pick it up from there and just give a little more insight on the next couple of years. With the career and how that went, and then we're gonna dive into, of course, your organization and talk a little bit about that as well.
Yeah, no, sounds great. Yes, I remember kind of sharing with you one of my favorite stories of, my Major League debut with Jimmy Williams and just kind of getting myself in a little jam and having that veteran presence of a manager come and kind of speak calm and peace into me to help me get through that. So that was just a really neat, kind of cool way to start my career. I always kind of cherish that story, and Jimmy passed away, rest in peace. But what a great moment I got to share with him in my debut. And so, yeah, I don't know if I mentioned this last time, but I was told I was going to be up. This was in 2002 with the Astros for 7 days. They had a guy on the DL. He was coming off the next week. Hey, this is great. Go make the most of it. Love it. And kind of like anything in life, you just go in with the expectation of I'm going to make the very most of this opportunity. And if it's 7 days, great. And if it turns into something else, even better. And so after that debut in Cincinnati, we headed back to Houston, and I got in a game there in Houston for my kind of home debut, which was neat as well. I also like to share that I was against the Giants, and at the time when Barry Bonds was a Giant. So,
Yeah.
I'll never forget kind of that first home outing with Houston. And we intentionally walked. I got in the game, and we intentionally walked him because that's what you did back then. And
Right.
the next guy hit into a fielder's choice. And so Barry Bonds is on second base. I'm coming set, checking my runner at second. And he's just kind of getting to secondary, hanging out there. And I literally remember thinking, holy cow, that's Barry Bonds. Oh, my goodness. And like kind of that first moment of, hey, get your stuff together here mentally, because you need to go get this next guy out. And so I'm still just soaking it in as almost like a kid, a fan, but also trying to act like I belong there as well. And so, man, that 7 days turned into the rest of the season just by making the most of an opportunity, having a few decent outings. Some guys either got hurt or whenever it was time to make a move, which would have probably been me, something would just work in my favor. And I got to stick around for the whole year. So that was awesome. And just kind of cherished all those moments. And then, in 2000, finished season in 2002 with Houston, went back and, worked my tail off in the off season, going into 03, thinking my goal is to make this team out of spring training and just be a big leaguer for forever, And so, in the course of all that working out and putting on, what I thought was good weight and muscle, I had a few elbow issues that next spring training. So I would start the year out in AAA and kind of bounce back and forth between New Orleans and Houston. And, this is kind of what's going to happen for the next few years of my career. I could never quite stick. I was kind of that 4A guy, would be really good in AAA, get up in the big leagues, do okay, but not enough to really just solidify myself other than that first season. So that was Houston 03. Certainly jump in here if you have questions there, and then I can kind of walk us through the next couple years of it.
Yeah, no, I think, and I think one thing that I think players and people that are listening don't really understand that the back and forth, not only physically that's hard, but mentally, right? Getting called up and then, okay, you think you're there for a little bit and then, okay, we're sending you back down. getting called up, you bring it back down. So talk a little bit about that, how you handled that.
Absolutely. Yeah, it is, Chris. You know, and it's part of the game, you know that, but it certainly takes a toll on you. And it's not just you. I mean, it is you mentally and your performance. I know for me, I could get wrapped up in if I knew one of the solidified guys was coming off the disabled list, a reliever. You kind of look around and you go, look, some guys under guaranteed contracts, some guys still have options left. I was in that boat. You kind of know who it's going to be. It usually comes down to one or two people. And so you come into the ballpark that day or even a few days before that, thinking every outing is I have to be perfect and I need to, rather than what we should have done is, or what anyone should do to be their best version of themselves on the mound or in any position is, hey, I'm going to go out here and give my best effort, my best attitude. I'm prepared. I'm going to compete my butt off and let the chips fall where they may. But I certainly got wrapped up in a little bit of the, shoot, they're about to make a move. Is it going to be me? And then, when you're going to the big leagues, that's an easy one. That's fun. When you're heading back the other way, it can get a little bit stressful, and not just on yourself, but your family. I mean, you've got an apartment in one town and you're in a hotel in another town. And, in my case, wife and kids. And that's very stressful on families more than anything. It usually falls on the shoulders of the family to kind of pick up the apartment and move to the next town.
Yeah, no, and I think that's probably one of the things that, gets lost in the mix with everything.
Yeah.
You have still have a family, and you're picking up, and all of a sudden, 2 weeks later, like you said, as a player, you knew that going in, but it's still, even though it's still hard, and it's a lot, it's a lot to do, just not, on you, but on the family as well. So yeah, that's definitely I guess one of the downsides, of playing at that level, and the travel too. I mean, because people don't realize whether you're flying and you're going places, it still takes a toll, on your body. The travel and different time zones and playing. I think all those things combined, yeah, like you said, mentally, you have to stay really sharp, just because you have to be able. You can't say, I'm tired today. I'm not gonna. I can't pitch. When you get that call, you got to be 100% ready to roll.
You do, and that's part of it. And by no means do I ever want to make it sound like, oh my gosh, these poor guys. It's you're living your dream, you're loving it. I've always said, if you can't get your adrenaline going to pitch in front of that many people, even if you're a little tired from a travel day, then you're probably in the wrong business. But yeah, I mean, there's no doubt. And I mean, AAA, it's funny because coming up through the minor leagues, single A, double A, a lot of really long bus rides, and it was common to kind of go, hey, let's man, I can't wait to get to AAA where we fly. That's going to be great. Well,
Right.
then you get to AAA and it's, you're flying commercial, which is fine, but the league rules are you have to take that first flight out to avoid any, there's another city and fans waiting on a game. It's not like our flight got delayed. Sorry, no game tonight, right? So one thing I noticed pretty quickly was, gosh, you'd play a game, you'd get in 12, 1 o'clock, whatever it would be, and your bus to the airport the next day was 4 in the morning. And so you travel that day, get in, you have a game. And those are the ones that kind of got you. I mean, look, the big leaguers, it's a charter flight after the game. You're eating good. You're rested. I mean, you should have zero excuses. But that AAA travel can get a little bit grindy for sure. And so just more incentive to do your very best and try to stick at the big league level. That's the goal anyways. Yeah, I mean, certainly no woe is me type scenario there, but there's certainly the travel and the, being able to, when they move you out at the end of a game, it's 11 o'clock after a game and your flight leaves the next morning. So here you go. Be ready to roll. But it is all just very exciting. And I cherished every moment of it. So yeah, 3 up and down with the Astros. And then I signed with San Diego Padres in 2004 off and, went to AAA Portland for a while and then got a little time in San Diego that season, which was the inaugural season of Petco Park. So that was really awesome. Got to kind of open that
That's
stadium
cool, yeah.
up and be a part of that. It was really cool. My family was only from about an hour away. So had a lot of friends and family coming in often. And that was a cool moment as well.
So and back then too, in AAA, you guys did those long cross country flights too, right?
Yeah, man. Yeah, no, definitely. There was there was Portland and New Orleans, and there was, back and forth, Las Vegas to wherever. And so you certainly had to kind of pick your spots to rest. And again, I remember thinking, man, I would rather get back on the bus after a game, sleep, watch a movie, kind of relax, sprawl out under the seats or something, and show up at, 9 in the morning and then get some rest before the game. I mean, honestly, I think most guys, once they started flying in AAA, were like, man, give me those bus rides again that we didn't think we liked. So,
Right.
and again, once you get to that where you want to be in the big leagues, those flights are pretty easy. They bus you right up to that charter, and you live large, and you get in that night, and that's pretty simple. You should be rested plenty for that. So yeah, but I mean,
Yeah.
all part of the journey. You kind of look back fondly on every bit of that. Working your way up, and other than the minor leagues, AAA, if guys would complain, I mean, there's a saying, I'm sure you've heard it. It's like, if you don't like it, play better. You'll stay in the big
Right.
leagues.
That's right. I know.
Yeah.
I remember when I first
Yeah.
started coaching, taking those bus rides, and everybody, like guys who my friends and went to school with, they're like, oh, it must be great, go driving down to Florida, spring training. And honestly, the first couple of years, yeah, it was fun. But after, like the 15th year, 16th year, sitting on a bus for, 10 hours, it does. It gets tiring. And I think, once you get there, you're rejuvenated and ready to roll. The bus rides were fun, but then, there was sometimes you just want to get there and,
Yeah.
relax, get out onto the field and get off the bus with a bunch, 18 to 22-year-olds for 10 hours.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. The older I got, the more I felt like, man, I'm not really cut out for this anymore in terms of, all of a sudden, then just the body just try to get comfortable, thing. I finally got to a point where I'd bring a sleeping bag, put it under the seats or in the aisle, and just lay out. I was like, look, man, I've got to rest. I've got to give my body a little rest. And so, yeah, you figure it out. You figure out ways
Yeah.
to make it as
Yeah.
comfortable as
No, that's
possible.
cool.
And you're with your boys.
Yeah, exactly. And
Yeah.
you're having fun
Yeah.
but let's talk about now your last year playing professional ball, and then in the back of your mind, your next step. What are you thinking about, and where you think you're going to go from that point?
Sure. Yeah. And for me, Chris, I think it's a little bit different because of the way my career ended. I think we mentioned in the last episode that I had, for my last 2 seasons, I had become a kind of a player coach in AA, that Bull Durham, Crash Davis guy, right? And so, man, I love that role. And they were certainly preparing me to be a coach in professional ball. And I'll be honest, my dream was to be a major league bullpen coach. I just love the bullpen atmosphere. I loved everything about it. Preparing for guys, knowing, the lineup, watching the game, who's available, who might pitch, and all that good stuff. I love thinking along with the managers in that regard. So that was my plan. I was going to pitch a couple more years and kind of sail off into a coaching role back to the bus leagues probably, and work my way back up. And as we alluded to in the last one, my career ended by one bad choice off the field, which landed me with some serious consequences. And so all of a sudden it was time to, just kind of like try to survive and figure out life. And, who are you outside of baseball? Because this may not be an option in your life anymore, was what I thought at the time. And so, yeah, it was suddenly me having to lean on, God, just to survive every day, and then go, okay, I don't even know. I can't even think that far ahead right now. Let me just get through today and try to figure this out. And so what that would lead to, as we spoke about earlier, is, I ended up doing that 3.5 years in prison. I walked out, completely started my life over, really with guilt and shame surrounding my thoughts in my life. I just kind of thought I didn't deserve baseball anymore because it was just so important to me. And I played that little game for a while. The first job, I don't remember how far we got into it last time, for me when I got out, was a maintenance job at a AAA stadium here in Round Rock. And so it was kind of ironic because it was like, man, I'm just kind of doing these mundane, jobs, but I'm also like, you're at the stadium again. Like, baseball is very much a part of everything you do. And so it was a cool feeling. And that led into a few private instructions in pitching. And then that organization, the Round Rock Express, they promoted me to a role as a baseball outreach coordinator with the youth. So camps and things of that nature, which was just a huge blessing. I know I said it last time, but with what I had been through and how I look on paper, I mean, these were just opportunities that I felt only God could open these doors. And so I was so grateful and just trying to make the most of all that. And I do believe that if you kind of humble yourself and take care of your business in the little things, you'll be lifted up for more. And I just kept taking one step in front of the other. And myself and a really dear friend of mine named Brian Gordon, who also played a really long time, we were in that role with the Express. We started some teams and we took a leap of faith and we jumped out and started our own organization, which at the time was called GPS, God Provides Strength. It was awesome. We did it for 8 or 9 years. We were so fortunate to watch about 170 kids from Central Texas go off and play in college, about 7 draft picks. And then here pretty recently, within the year, we took GPS and we merged it together with the Texas 12, who had just a great reputation here in Texas. They just had their 20-year anniversary and they just really brought a lot of structure and admin help, and their culture lined up with ours. And so, yeah, we kind of locked arms there, and now we're off and running with them and creating more opportunities for young men, and not just in our area, but in the state of Texas.
Yeah, no, that's awesome, man. And I love the fact that like you said, baseball, even though in the beginning it wasn't a coaching role like you had envisioned, but you took that job because it was around the stadium and it opened really some cool doors for you, with the community outreach. And is that one of the reasons why you really wanted to start your own organization working in that atmosphere with kids?
It is, Chris, but it isn't even like I intended to do that. I kind of backed into it, to be honest with you. And how that happened was when I was doing that role at the Express, Noah Ryan owns that team. His son, Reed and Reese Ryan, they run it. Great man. They really were there for me in a very hard time in my life and offered me that job and all that good stuff. And we were just at a breakfast one morning, to be honest with you. And before we started any teams, a bunch of folks were just there's just baseball guys there, and they were kind of kicking around, slinging some mud about select travel baseball. And I had helped coach one other organization just as a favor to a friend. And Reese Ryan said, "Hey, Puff, didn't you coach one of these teams?" And I did. And he said, "What's the deal? Like, what's this travel baseball thing about?" I'm like, "It's a little crazy." And he kind of, I remember the comment was, "You think we could do it better?" And I felt like we could. I just felt like there were some things missing with communication, development. Not that I was, the answer, but it was like there's a few things as a coach I wished I'd gone a little different. Then we started it through the Express, which, and again, I never could have said, "Hey, you know what, Chris, man, I'm gonna get into this travel baseball thing and have about 30 teams and mentor all these kids." It was just one foot in front of the other, and we have some great men that coach and pour into these kids, so people wanted to be a part of it. Certainly, way way bigger than me or Coach Gordon. And so, yeah, it just kind of manifests itself into what it is today, and has provided just a bunch of opportunities. And I'm just so grateful and humbled to be a part of it. You get a small, this as a coach, you get to be a small part in these men's journey. Hopefully you're making an impact off the field, but certainly on the field as well. So it wasn't something I had planned, but I couldn't have written the script any better because I love what I do now.
Yeah, no, and that's really cool, the how you transitioned into that, because I think a lot of people just kind of, and myself included, the travel baseball industry is, it's wild right now, especially with the growth and, big corporations coming in and buying up, organizations and programs. And you really have to stick to your principles, with your organization, because there is a lot going on. And, if you really want to have an impact, I believe sticking to your principles and really putting the time and effort in with each individual player. Like you said, not just teaching them how to throw or teaching them how to hit, but teaching them how to grow up to be a young man, and hopefully down the road they take some of those lessons that you've imparted, and really embrace that, and then come back. And it's always cool when the guys come back and they talk about a thing that you did or the organization did that you really didn't maybe feel at the time had an impact, but they realized it. And especially as guys get older, I think they even realize it more. So that's what I think that's missing a lot, like you said. Not that we have all the answers, but that's missing in travel ball right now.
I agree. It needs to be transformational, not just transactional. And I think we have stuck to our guns in that regard. And certainly haven't done it perfect. It's a hard deal. But if we're going to be in it, and if we're going to talk about problems or whatever, then we need to bring solutions. And that's kind of in our program what we believe in. We stuck to our guns for a long time. I did get offered many corporate, like, hey, we'll come in and you'll run Austin and we'll pay you this. And here's the bottom line. And just was never interested. And then the whole 12 thing came about, and I had played against them. I had not just listened to what they said they believed, but I had witnessed it in their coaches, their players, very high level players, but they play with respect for the game, respect for their opponents. Their fans were, for the most part, respectful. And you play against some that's not always the case. I'd say the majority. And so that's what really opened our eyes to go, you know what? I think we're all kind of pulling in the same direction here. I think we can make a bigger impact if we lock arms with these guys. And part of that was me being a baseball guy, but not much of a business guy. And so all these things that folks wanted to do, I didn't really know how to pull it off. Well, they've got people in those roles that do a really good job of preparation and helping us in the admin role. My wife kills it in the admin as well, but now she has support from the 12. So yeah, it's been very, very cool just to kind of see how those two cultures align and how we're all kind of just trying to make an impact on young men, and baseball is just really the platform.
Yeah. So how many teams do you guys run out of the organization now?
Man, so we are now the capital city branch out of Austin. And so we've got about 22, 25 teams. And then if you count all the other branches, I think I'd have to look it up, but it's in the hundreds, and which is so impressive because there's a footprint on each one. Each area has a director, and then you have, your staff under that. And they're just very intentional about every Tuesday morning directors meetings, making sure that, we're not just letting things slip through the cracks. So, yeah, I mean, I think it's in the hundreds with the Texas 12 in terms of teams. And that's about 25 here in Austin. But again, all just, we don't just, Chris, we don't just say, hey, 500 people show up to tryouts. Man, let's make every single team we can here. It's okay. Great. We have great numbers. Do we have two good men that can lead that team as coaches? And we're not going to just throw somebody out there because we have numbers. Do we have two catchers and enough pitchers? And can they go compete and make it a worthwhile, because it's expensive. I mean, it really is, man. These families are paying a lot of money to do this. And so we are really intentional about making sure, like, hey, let's not just add numbers just to add them. We're blessed to have a lot of teams, but does that equal guys that can be an impact high school player? And maybe that's their goal, and that's okay. There's a place for that. But yeah, we're trying to kind of cater to those high level guys that we certainly get, which is awesome. But also that family that says, hey, we get it. Maybe he won't go be a first round draft pick or go play in college, but he wants to be an impact high school player. He wants to be a part of something special. And so we need to make sure that we're offering that for all different levels.
Yeah, no, and that's important too because, like you said, every kid is not going to play in college just because of the competition, the way it is set up right now, and the new rules in college baseball with the transfer portal now with academies. I was telling our players a couple of days ago, it used to be I'd go out and go to high school games during the college season because I was the recruiting coordinator and you had to go, either be at a practice or go see a player. I'd go see a player. But nowadays, it's very rarely do you see college coaches out at the high school games. It's really more in the fall season with organizations or in the summer, at the big tournaments. That's when a lot of the recruiting, is taking place. So having opportunities for those young players to participate outside of high school, I think is even more important nowadays.
Yeah, we've seen the same thing, Chris. It's just the college coaches are so busy in the spring with their team and watching that portal, and just the way recruiting it's changed a lot. So we've certainly had to adapt in the way we show up for these kids and try to be good advocates for them for the next level. And a lot of that's just education, being honest. Look, guys, less than 1% of high school guys are ready to go, Division 1, especially Power 4 right now, unless you're that big arm, or that huge talent. It's just JUCO, going somewhere, D2, D3, where you can play and develop. And then, now it's even changed where we used to say, look, man, go honor your commitment, go battle, go, it's not going to go perfect. But there are times now where we've had to adjust a little bit and give the advice to the young man or the family of, you know what, if they kind of made a promise to you, whatever that meant to you, and then they've brought in portal guys that are older and have more experience, that's understandable. That's how that works now. But it's probably okay for you to maybe look around a little bit and go somewhere where you can play and develop. And so you have to walk that line too, because not, and something didn't go my way, I'm jumping schools. We see too much of that now. But there now is a time to go, okay, let's see what's kind of best for you and look out for that player and that family. So it's just changed a lot since we started doing it with, like you said, the portal and the NIL and the different things going on. So that's just really for us, we see that as a responsibility to stay up on that stuff and educate parents because they've never been through it.
Yeah, and especially nowadays, because like you said, well, my whole thing when we talk with our coaches and parents and players is the same. Go someplace where you can play. Go someplace where you're wanted. But in the same token, now the coach leaves or they bring in 5 JC guys and a couple of portal guys. Now you were number 3 on the depth chart. Now you're number 8 on the depth chart. That definitely impacts, your PT. And if you're a competitive athlete, you want to play. You don't want to just, be on the bench. So it is hard. I think
Yeah.
because because again, you're talking about back in the day, when I was, guys wanted to leave our program for whatever reason. Okay, but they had to sit out a year. And there was a consequence, involved if, once we released them. And nowadays, and I think it's trickling down too to travel ball and organizations where you bring a kid in, you work with him for that year, and then all of a sudden he's okay, but he's not your top player, and if he's not your top guy, the parents are like, maybe I'll just go someplace else, and
100.
it's a trickle down effect, I believe, because years ago, I didn't see as much of that happening. And I think that's why you see a lot of college guys now, too, especially the last 2 years, that you've seen a lot of college coaches go into the pro ranks. And I think part of it is, and it's guys I talk to, they're just done with their between the NIL, who's given this much more money, you spend all this time recruiting a player, they get, and then they get into your program, this guy offered me more NIL money, or I'm going there because they offered me more playing time, and they make the switch. So I think it's frustrating for coaches too. I think it affects everybody in that ecosystem right now.
I agree. I agree, Chris. Our conversations with college coaches, it's very much the same. It's just it's the system. It is what it is, but it's broken. And I don't think it's fun for them. And, certainly for us, we're, just little travel ball guys, whatever it is, we see it bouncing around. This guy promised me the national team, and I've got my advisor said I've got to go play in these big events. And it's like, okay, you gotta go do what you think you gotta do. But it can be a little frustrating, certainly, pour a lot of time and effort into and educate and be honest and transparent and then have them go see that little carrot get dangled and jump around. But it is part of it. And I think for us, we've just really focused on we want the ones that want to be here. We're going to coach up the ones that are right in front of us. Don't take it too personal, which is something I have to remind myself of because I tend to and just keep moving forward with the ones that God puts in front of us and coach them up and create those relationships.
Yeah, and I think what you said there too, don't take it personal, because a lot of our younger coaches, and I probably myself included, when I first got involved in the travel baseball, you do take it personal in the beginning because you invest a lot of time and effort, in these players. And then they decide as a junior, "Oh, I'm gonna go play because somebody told me, I had to play for this national team." And in the back of your mind, you're like, it doesn't matter where you play, because they're not recruiting a team. They're recruiting you as an individual. But I think parents, like you said, I don't blame parents because they get caught up in the hype. The players definitely, as a high school player, they get caught up in the hype. And then you're trying to be honest with them, but the hype takes over and, that's it. And
Yeah,
just
it's
go.
hard.
It is.
And you care so much. I mean, you just care so much that, I think that's where it comes in for me, where I start taking them. It's like, we cared so much. We're like, if you only knew how much we poured into this and cared and reached out on your behalf and loved on. And, then that's where you're just like, but at the end of the day, you're right. I have to remind myself, like, parents have never, first, unless they've had older siblings or they played, they've never really been through it. They're trying to do the best they can for the young man. And frankly, a lot of times they just don't know. And we've started doing more kind of educational podcasts and bringing coaches on or talking about the system because especially we've started even going down to like 12, 13, 14 U to prepare people for high school because we've seen that when they go from that eighth grade 14U season to high school, they just don't have any idea of what to expect. And sometimes that can play out in maybe a panic and, falling for something and going somewhere else, or not that we're the only game in town, just, they don't know. And so we've been trying to be more proactive about education and bring on different voices, college coaches, recruiters, pro scouts, and our organization can jump on those podcasts and hear some different voices and try to gather some good information that'll help them in those processes.
Yeah, without a doubt. It's funny because we had a meeting with some of our eighth grade players a couple of days ago going into ninth grade. And, of course, the parents, everybody's asking, what do we need to do? What do we need to prepare for? And my whole thing in ninth grade, you're not really changing much just because, back a couple of years ago, yes, we used to go take our ninth grade teams to play in the national tournaments and to go. But now there's really, we still want to play high level baseball, but to play in a national, you know, type tournament, it's not as critical anymore for those ninth graders because college coaches aren't there. I mean, they're just not going to spend the time and money to go watch a bunch of ninth graders where they can't do anything with them anymore. It's not till like going into their junior year, that summer going into their junior year. So we try to, like you said, try to educate the parents to say, hey, that summer of your junior year, that's a big year because that's when the coaches are going to come out. They can start making contact, and then that end of that summer and then that fall baseball season becomes really important. I don't know what it is out with you guys down in Texas, but for us up here, it's a short window. We have September, October, pretty much to play the fall season.
Yeah.
Before all the restrictions come into play and coaches going off campus. So that summer fall is huge for the kids.
No, I agree, Chris, and that's another part of the education piece, right? Is you have parents, well-meaning, love their young man, they want to do the very best for them, and then you've got people that see dollar signs and they get invited, private, personal invite to every showcase known to man, and every, and they're, do we need to do this? Do we need to do this? And we're like, guys, you don't need to do it. If you just want to, you've got a little extra money, you want to go experience it, great. But if you're asking us, do you need this to stay up with your recruiting? Not at all. Whatever you do in ninth, even 10th grade, now especially, it's just not going to matter. And in fact, we've seen guys get a little overexposed because you have to make that good first impression. At the end of the day, what's going to matter is where are you when they can actually talk to you and recruit you? It doesn't matter what you do right now. So, yeah, again, just, we get a lot of, do we need to go to this? Do we need to go to that? And you can really get camped out and showcased out. And it's a lot on the kids and the families logistically, financially. So that's another big part of the education piece is, the rankings, all the stuff that you kind of pay for don't mean a whole lot. So, again, do what you want with your young man. And if that's, but for us, if you're asking, do you need to do it? And I have a recruiting coordinator that's phenomenal. He played, but then he was a big agent for CAA for 15 years. So he saw it all. Like, preparing these pro guys for their exposure and all that. So he does a good job of mapping out plans. And we just ultimately say, look, unless it's MLB and it's free and they're putting it on, there are a few things like area code and USA baseball. Absolutely, man. We're all for it. But if it's just $500-600 to fly to wherever for a 2-hour showcase, we don't recommend it. I mean, you can do it, but we just try to help parents avoid some of those pitfalls as well.
Yeah, and like you said, I think if you want to go play, we have kids that say, yeah, yeah, no, I get it. We just want to go. We want to play in JetBlue Park or
Sure.
whatever. Hey, you want to experience that? That's awesome.
Yeah.
Go ahead, go do it. But if you're looking for, because my whole thing is sometimes you can get exposed at an exposure event. If you're not prepared, or if you're a kid as a pitcher and you're throwing 82, you're wasting six, $700, $800 to go to that event because you're not ready yet, or physically you're not mature enough yet. And no one's going to, the places that run these events, I get it. It's a business and they're trying to make money. So they're not going to tell you, hey, if you're not throwing 86 or above, don't sign up, because they wouldn't have half the kids, to run the events. It becomes one of those, yes, education's important. If you want to go just to get an experience or to, to play in and to see where you're at And sometimes that's an eye opener, I believe, for players. They go down and they're the best in their little area, and all of a sudden they go to one of these national events and they look around, they say, "Wow,
That could be
we."
a good
It,
motivator.
yeah, it really is. We had, because of the weather that we've had the last couple of days, we've had a bunch of college programs in our facility. Last week we had UVA in, and some of my guys were in there taking BP. High school tryouts start up here around February 15th, and they were walking in and they were looking at the size of some of those guys from UVA. And, we always preach to your players that, hey, college coaches want bigger, stronger, faster.
Yeah,
And they nod and they go, "Yeah, yeah, we get it, we get it." But I think until they actually see the size of the player and the strength of some of these guys, that they don't get it.
I agree. It's a great eye opener, even to the point of I think I'd mentioned to you I was the pitching coach for the Kansas State Rural Scout team. Went to Jupiter at the big event in Jupiter, and I brought a few of our guys. And I mean, yes, to a man, when I get asked what do I need to do, it's typically get more physical. Nutrition, food, sleep, rest. Fitness, your workout, fall in love with the weight room. And we showed up, and you're talking about high school kids, mostly seniors, but our guys were like, and these are pretty physical guys in our area. I mean, they're some dudes. They're going to play D1 baseball, and they're just like, I said, man, look around, look at these guys. They're like, holy cow! As I'm telling you, but this is what it looks like. So it is a good eye opener to kind of see and where you stack up and motivate you
Yeah.
to go to work.
And I think you try to encourage parents and players to go to college games and go see, a Division 1 and Division 2, Division 3 baseball game, because all those levels, junior college, NAI, every single one of those levels, again, depending on the program. But if you go see a quality program, you're going to see really good baseball. And I think it's important for parents and players to see that, because back in the day, Division 3, and I coached at those levels, and we had one or two guys, touching 90, every once in a while. But now, Division 3, you got guys, 3 or 4 guys on the staff throwing 90.
Yes,
And it's you got guys who played, Division 1 for a year, just weren't getting the PT, then dropping down because they wanna play, and they wanna play for a good program. They wanna try to get in the NCAA regionals. Division 2, I know in Texas, they had some great programs, in Division 2 in Texas, and down in North Carolina, Division 2 is really strong. I went to watched one of the years Division 2 World Series down. They did it in, Cary. The players, fantastic. The teams, the best, 8 teams in the country, and, I don't think parents and players really, until they actually see it in person, they have a true understanding of the competition.
I agree. I mean, we have Angelo State here with Coach Foster, Adam Foster, and Brooks. They're Division 2. They're in the hunt every year, and they would compete and probably beat a lot of good Division 1 mid-major programs. And so, or to your point about JUCO, especially now, I mean, you get we've got McLennan and Weatherford and Sanjack and some of these, and sometimes kids will come and go, all right, I guess I'll just go to JUCO. It's like, whoa, hold on, I don't think you know what JUCO is, or Angela, that's Division 2, and I'm like, bud, they're in the World Series every year. They stomp most of these D1s that you want to go to. Not mo but, plenty of them. It's a great option, and we've had a young man go to a D3 several years ago because he just needed to pitch. He was 84, 85, 6'4", long limbs, and I said, "You need to just go somewhere you can pitch and develop." That's it. Not many guys were on him. He went to a D3 out here, got a chance to pitch, develop, was 95, 96, and got drafted after 2 years, which if he goes and sits behind a bunch of guys at a D1, that's not happening. So,
Right.
yeah, it's per individual, and you have to really assess that. But the education piece and knowing that there are so many options, but again, you've got to go develop, you've got to get on the field at some point to really see what you're about. And sometimes that is going to certainly be come in, pay your dues, be a bench guy, make the most of your opportunities. But also sometimes that's, hey man, swallow the pride a little bit and go to a program that may not look as sexy when you tweet it out, but they're going to give you a great opportunity, and you're going to become a better young man for it, and get on the field and see what you're made of.
Without a doubt. Yeah, without a doubt. Where do you see travel ball in the next 5 years, Brandon?
Gosh. Well, I don't see it slowing down a whole lot. It's if anything, it's picked up. I have heard rumors that MLB baseball has some plans on getting involved. I don't know how true that is. I wouldn't mind seeing something like that. I don't even know what that looks like. I really don't. Again, we really try to stay in our lane and just do the very best we can and not, worry about all that's out there. But it's there's a lot going on. There's a lot more popping up, and I guess I'm not really answering your question because I don't know. I'm just kind of where my feet are today and doing the best we can with our program. But yeah, I don't see it slowing down. I mean, there's more and more teams popping up. There's more and more families wanting to be involved in it. So I don't know, unless like a Major League Baseball or a big conglomerate like that got involved on some regulations and things of that nature, which I don't know what that would look like. I don't see it slowing down a whole lot.
Yeah. One of the, I guess one of my key things, talking with some guys in the ABCA and stuff, I'm with you about the regulation. I think there needs to be some sort of with all the different travel organizations and all the different, between the different tournament organizers and the different leagues, and there probably needs to be something with pitching, some type of pitch regulation. I know they were talking about a national ID program, which would be awesome. I think it would be hard to implement, but like you said, if a national organization got involved, like MLB and something around those lines, it would probably be a little easier because they have the resources to try to make that happen. But yeah, I'm with you. I think it's going to just keep getting, bigger and bigger, which is great because it presents a lot of opportunities for kids. But I think like we both had said the education piece and, the training, the player development, definitely trumps any type of, the winning piece, especially at the lower levels, because you got to teach the kids the fundamentals. So,
Yeah, I think that
yeah.
gets lost a little bit. I agree with you.
Yeah. Well, hey, man, we're coming up on our time here, but I
All right.
really appreciate it. It was great to dive in a little
Yeah.
deeper, on this stuff. A lot of great insights. We really appreciate it. And, anything that we can do for you in the future, feel free to, reach out. I'm definitely going to, I love what you guys are doing down there. So
Yeah.
hopefully one day maybe we'll meet on the field.
I would love that, Chris. Yeah, hopefully you can keep in touch with me. I would love to talk baseball anytime. And if we could be a resource here in Texas and vice versa, that's what the baseball world's about, right? Looking out for each other.
100%, man. Well, thanks very much, Brandon. Thanks everybody for tuning in to All Star Insights. Great combo. We have two parts with Brandon, so make sure you listen to both parts. And Kids on First and Tuckahoe Sports are sponsors. Thank you very much, and we'll talk to everybody soon.
Thanks, guys. Have a great day.